Hello and welcome to another episode of Arena FPS. We've been gone for quite some time, but we're back and in great form. How's it doing?
How's it doing?
How's it doing? Good.
Thank you.
Shall we get into the news? Now, this isn't necessarily the most recent news, as we've not been around for a while, but it's stuff that's happened in the...
It's an update of where the scene is.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah. From our eyes, not from the eyes of objectivism, if that's even a word. Diabotical, that's something that's actually been having quite a few new things added to it in terms of updates and stuff. That's kind of one of the few games that's really been on a bit of a kind of an update binge recently. I think there's been 4 in the past month or something.
Yeah, so they were quiet for ages, and then suddenly, just like every time he's been streaming a lot of like Fortnite and stuff. I think people have been asking him to talk about his game, so then he's done little update streams where he's shown that same Inca, I don't know if it's Inca, that same Inca style map, I think, where there's the like giant eggbot statue and all the people like worship it and stuff. That map where they've added tons and tons of assets to it, and he's kind of explained about the lore and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it seems like what they're doing is really adding a lot of assets to one map, and then the map makers can just use those assets in other maps rather than trying to get too broad, which I think is a good idea. They've got a lot of artists, and it's probably a good idea to use as artists as effectively as possible. So they're really just pushing out lots and lots of stuff for this one map, and it's looking really good actually. I don't know about your thoughts on it, but I really love the art style. It's very clean, but also detailed enough to look interesting and kind of a little bit poppy, and it's got this kind of punky thing going on. It's cool. Yeah.
So like the lore in quotations, lore premise of the map is kind of like it was this temple thing that's there, and then all the eggbots sort of like land there, and then they screw in all these like spawn plates and billboards and connect a bunch of wires all over the place, basically, so people can fight there. So he's gone for that sort of style where you can kind of see where things have sort of been tacked onto the walls.
Yeah, like there's graffiti and stuff. It's awesome. I like it.
Yeah, but like art-wise, it is very clear. Like we've played Quick Champions a bit, where things can get quite cluttered visually and stuff. But this looks very clean and clear, with also having quite like a nice aesthetic to it. Yeah,
it's kind of what I thought Reflex would look like when I originally saw the kind of the Reflex concept artwork. Maybe a little bit less high fidelity, but like, you know, when the original Reflex stuff was looking a bit more kind of grungy and a little bit kind of like more, I guess, graffiti and stuff like that, and posters on the wall. That's what I was expecting to see out of Reflex, and they haven't really kind of followed that up as much as I thought they might have been able to do, but they've really been going
Reflex
for that.
Reflex is kind of like absent of an art style almost. They kind of had something where they were going for this kind of, not steampunky, but like, I can't describe it, when they're sort of looking like Tesla coils and things like that.
Yeah.
So they kind of had something going, and they kind of dropped it, but Diabotical looks like it has a really strong art style.
And I think that's really important, especially for like the like newer players and the people that aren't so engrossed in the gameplay. Having something that's really going to draw you in is definitely something going for the game, and it's something that a lot of the Arena FPS games haven't had for a long while. I mean, Quake 3 and UT 99 had really nice art styles and aesthetics going on, but after that, like Warsaw is kind of like just pigs, and then
cel-shaded pigs.
Cel-shaded pigs. What else is there? Xenotics, just nah. It's alright.
Sci-fi.
Yeah, it's just nothing's really had a really strong identity, so I'm glad to see that. Also,
if they can knock out like 3 of those, you know, or just a few of those themes, not those like the same Inca theme, but 3 separate themes, then you've got a really strong looking game. I think that's really good.
Yeah. Last night on a stream, he was talking about minigames, which I really like the idea of. A bit like Mario Party, I think, was one of the analogies. And the really strong thing that you could bring there is there's a big dearth in quality tutorials in Arena FPS games, and kind of using minigames as a methodology for teaching the players how to play in a duel, for example. So, I don't know, just an LG versus LG fight, no other weapons, kind of a little bit like Thunderstruck, but the map changes every time you get a frag or something along those lines. The players would learn the good geometry for using LG, the bad geometry for using LG, rather than just kind of F3 for all, which is a bit messy. So really simplifying something down is a really good way to teach somebody something. And these mini games would be a fun way to do that, and I think that sounds really awesome. Also just something for like casual players to do.
Zacubus had the idea as well that you mentioned on stream, where you could like do something like Lemmings, where someone has to jump a gap and you hold them in the air with your LG to get them to the other side, and you would learn kind of how viable LG is to hit when people are doing that kind of movement and stuff like that.
Yeah, like pinning and all that kind of stuff. It sounds like a really cool concept.
Yeah, he talked as well kind of briefly about an idea for the competitive standpoint, where I don't know if he said he was going to do this or if it's just a thought, but Overwatch kind of has the policy or the matchmaking system where you click matchmaking or you click ranked, and you'll put in a queue where you could get any kind of game from control point to pushing the cart. Like, you don't search for TDM like you do in Quake or something. You just search for matchmaking, and you could get different types of game modes. And he was talking about having that as a potential option for Diabotical, and then seeing what rises to the top and what people like and stuff. So it's definitely very community focused in terms of how these things are going to be picking game modes and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, a few games have kind of done that recently, like Reflex has had the multi-queue you can do, and also Quake Champions has a multi-queue you can do. But actually forcing it on the player that they have to go into this multi-queue, I think is better for getting the different game modes, because otherwise people just be like, I like free-for-all, and then you can't ever get sacrifice games, where it's like 10-minute queue for CTF in Reflex, or even more these days probably. So having like forcing the player into this multi-queue is like a really good idea, and if you can use the data to kind of emphasize what maps people like and use analysis on like the output, then I think you could really get something good out of that.
Yeah, I think Reflex would have been much better off if it just had a team game queue, and you could get doubles, or you could get regular TDM, or you could get CTF.
Yeah.
Or CA or whatever, and then because I bet there were like 3 or 4 players sitting in every queue, which means that no games can start.
Yeah, the more you simplify something, like the better it is in some aspects. Obviously not every aspect, but I think that's a good area where you can simplify the process and you get a better outcome. Shall we move on, or is there anything else you want to say on Diabotical?
Nope.
Unreal Tournament development, or lack thereof. This is a bit of a shame, and there's been a few games which we're going to be following this talking point where there's not really been any progress over the summer for UT, and it's a bit of I think the devs are focusing on Fortnite at the moment, which I don't necessarily blame them. Like, that game's huge at the moment. Like, there's a battle royale mode where I think they've got 1 million concurrent players at one point or something. It's like competing with PUBG and stuff like that, so that's where the money is these days. But it is a shame that UT's kind of fallen by the wayside due to that. I mean, whether it gets picked up again, they say it's going to get picked up again, but it's kind of, I feel like it's hard to stop and start a project.
It's a strange, it just shows you the kind of how far up UT is on their priority list, because they're willing to work on it almost half-heartedly for like 3 years, and then when Fortnite comes along, they kind of drop everything on UT and work on Fortnite. Like, could you imagine them doing that to Fortnite?
Yeah, no. I mean,
I understand that Fortnite's a moneymaker, but just it doesn't look good for UT players. It almost feels like it's like a side charity project by the Epic devs.
Yeah, which it kind of was, to be fair. I mean, it was like more of a passion project for like Steve and some of the other like older devs at Epic. I think maybe there wasn't much going on at the industry, like in the company at the time, so it was a good use of resources to keep them active on a project. And it's always been a like method to get people interested in the Unreal Engine UT, but that seems to be less important these days, to have like games that sell your engine. It's a shame, really. I mean, we don't really play much UT. We've not played a lot of the new one, but the fact that it's kind of in the ether at the moment, or in limbo in terms of development, is still a shame. It's a style of FPS. It's a style of arena FPS that is only really represented by UT and by Toxic.
Toxic at this point, and Toxic is minuscule. UT was the best kind of chance for that type of arena FPS gameplay, and then it looks like they haven't done anything really since June. So. Yeah,
it's been a while, so that's a shame, but hopefully they do get back on that at some point. Next up, Insight. So unfortunately, again, this game went into Kickstarter and it didn't make it out, which is kind of a story of quite a few arena FPS games. There was the Black Room, was it? What was he?
The one by John Romero.
Yeah, John Romero one didn't make it, and also Reflex, obviously. I think Diabotical is the only one that actually made it through Kickstarter, which really pays testament to like the popularity of that, if all these other ones haven't been able to do it. But Insight didn't make it through the Kickstarter, and now the developer is looking at kind of alternative ways to fund the project, right?
Yeah, and I really hope it does make it to the finish line, because it's a unique and kind of interesting concept that we don't have in any, like, there's a lot of arena FPS games that do the Quake formula in slightly different variances, but this is something that's quite a bit different. So
yeah, the sound stuff was really interesting, and like, even if it doesn't go, like, even if it's a not as ambitious as it wanted to be in the first place. If they can do something with that idea and kind of have a cool game that's unique, then I think that'd be really cool to get out and get accessible. But that's the way things go. Talking about projects that are on the return, on the rebound, we have Project Next is back in development. Now, there was a kind of a video by Pretty Awesome a few days ago now. We checked out, and it's one of the first games we looked at, right? I remember talking about it really early on, maybe 2015, and it's just good to see like these games that kind of fallen by the wayside a bit come back into development. And, you know, we'll see where it ends up, but I'm just excited to see it back and with the developers kind of with passion behind it.
Yeah, it's hard to see what they're going for in terms of gameplay. They talked about like how arena FPS games are really difficult and there's a huge barrier to entry to them. They also talked about going single player. So
yeah,
I don't know what the plan is, but it looks like they're back and they want to make something. So,
which is, you know, good.
See where it goes.
Right, and finally, more news of not news, but I mean, there's a little nugget here. Reflex 1.2. So this is another game that I can't remember when the last patch was. There was a big release patch around April. I believe there was another couple of patches, maybe May, June kind of time, but I don't think there's been anything significant since then. But recently on the Steam page, some new kind of loot box style things have been appearing, like crates and keys, and also some new actual items, like different flavors of like weapon skins and stuff like that. I mean, there's rumors going around that it might be going free to play, which I don't think would be a terrible idea, but
I think it'd be a great idea.
Yeah,
like there really isn't a free arena shooter that's extremely modern and like on Steam.
And I mean, it's a good game as well. Like, for all the like memes about it's dead, I think it's one of the more rounded, recent developed arena FPS games. I think with a bit more interest in like the scene at the moment, I think a lot of people who maybe didn't get what they wanted out of Quake Champions, maybe they want to pick it up if it was free and the player base increased a bit. So there's definitely that prospect. What they actually do with the patch, like they've been working on it in secret for quite some time, so hopefully there's going to be a lot to it. A bit of a girthy patch, not just loot boxes, but I'm really excited to see what comes for that.
Yeah, me too. I really hope it does go free to play, and I hope that gets them like a little chunk of players and stuff, because there's a lot of people that I've seen buying Quake Live because of Quake Champions. Like, imagine what they'd do if there's a free game that is equally kind of, because they are equally good. You know, Reflex has got its map, the map maker. They'll have all these cosmetics and modern things and stuff, and it's a really solid product. And it's one of the few that actually got to the finish line and got to version 1.0. So
yeah, it's a very solid product. And if it was free, it would be much more palatable to a lot of people, I think. It doesn't. I don't think these games need a massive audience in order to be like tick along. Like Quake Live's are 300-400 people, maybe 500-600 at the most, and that's enough to like I can find 3-4 games all day. You can find deals. Like those kind of numbers, they're not good by any means, but that's enough of a community. It's when it starts to drop below the sub 100 range, which you really struggle to find people when there's an international audience. So if it can kind of if it can climb itself onto that stage, that'd be great. There's also the this film which is coming up quite soon, I believe, so that's to be looked forward to. Not sure if there's many details on that, but they are making a film using Reflex as a like the game.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what that's going to look like.
Yeah,
it's got Sean Astin in it, the guy from Lord of the Rings.
Don't know who that is, but good.
All right. Other people will.
Yeah, there you
go. In other Reflex news, they're hosting some monthly cups. I don't know who's behind it. Oh, I think Rama's behind it. And it's going to be on Rama's special rule set, which they're going to be adding into the main game next patch anyway in 1.2. So, and it's going to be a cup for North America and Europe, and they'll alternate every 2 weeks. So that's pretty cool. If they can keep that going as like a consistent tournament thing, then people have a reason to kind of play Reflex and practice it and stay competitive, which would be nice.
Yeah, I mean, like if there's no real ladder stuff going on at the moment, I don't think there's much of a fight for the top ladder position these days. I think tournaments is some of the best way for smaller games to get kind of a not pro community, but a competitive community to work together and practice, and more scrims and all that kind of stuff. I guess it's not a scrim if it's 1v1, you know what I mean? That's going to be streamed on Elementary in the US and on twitch.tv/Arena FPS, which is us, my good friend GMT, and the Euro one. And The dates and times are Saturday, December 3rd at 2 p.m. EDT. Sunday, December 3rd at 2 p.m. EDT is the American one, and Sunday, December 17th, 5 p.m. CET. So work out your own time zones. Much else on that, or is it?
Nope, that seems to be it. High hopes for 1.2 and the future of Reflex.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a mixed bag this episode. You know, like Diabotical, really good.
Yep.
Looks like they're really chugging along and pushing out like loads of art stuff and things. Project Next, you know, it's come back. That can only be good news. Reflex with a new patch, very exciting. And it's quite sad about Insight and New T, but Insight seems to still want to carry on and pick itself back up. And Lord knows where UT is going to be. But
yeah,
fingers crossed I get back on that.
I think that's pretty much everything we want to talk about, right?
Yes. Cool. Thank you very much for listening.
Oh, thank you. Wait, no, I'm not listening. Oh, yeah. I thought you were thanking me.
As well for listening.
Yeah.
As well for